Good morning, Year 8. Thank you again for engaging with these online lessons. If you could please send me that message on Show My Homework to show that you're accessing the lesson, then I can mark you down on the register and that would be fantastic. Today's lesson is going to be assessed via some self-marking, but there's also a My Maths activity at the end just to consolidate your knowledge. And as always, if you could please save red@theroyal.school and email for if you need help. But if you need to submit work, can you do that just via Show My Homework, please? And we can keep that separate. Thank you. So today we're going to have a look at using worded formulae. A formula is a mathematical way of writing a sum that we might need to do with changing values in it. You'll notice in the literacy part of this as well, we've got a formula with an A at the end, which is the singular, and then in our title here we've got formulae, which has an AE, and that's actually the plural, so we don't say formulas, we say formulae. Lesson objectives today: developing students are going to be able to substitute into a worded formula. Secure students are going to be able to use those formulae in reverse. And excelling students are going to be able to do some problem solving involved with formulae. So just to start us off, I've got 8 BidMaths questions for you, because BidMaths is really important in order to be able to use a formula. So I've got 3 batches of questions here that you can select one from. So I've got the 1-star questions, the easier, the 2-star questions are more difficult, and then the 3-star questions are our most difficult BidMaths starter questions here. So if you're able to pause the video until you've had a go at the questions, and then we'll go through the answers when you are ready. So answers to these, if you can self-mark, as follows. Do watch out for the squaring ones. Remember, squaring is indices, so if you were doing the last batch of questions here, then we need to do our 3 squared first. And another common mistake is that people sometimes forget that squaring is timesing by itself and do 3 times 2 to get 6 in that. We need 3 squared, which is 9. Then we times that by 4 for multiplication, which gets us our 36. And then we do 2 plus 36 in the last one to get our answer of 38. If you do need any more help with those, then please get in touch with me on my email, because you will need BidMaths throughout today's lesson. So, formulae is a mathematical way of writing a sum, but generally those sums are going to be real life situations. So a worded formula is a mathematical sum where some of the variables or something may change in it that we want written out. So here we've got 3 examples of some real life formulae. So I've got the instructions at the top here for cooking a steak. So to get it cooked medium as its cooking level, then it needs 25 minutes in the oven per 450 grams plus another 25 minutes. And this is something that you might see on a packet of meat or a packet of vegetables, and explain how to cook it in the best way. But what we can see is that this isn't for every single steak. This is per 450 grams. So if the steak is less than that, then we need less than this initial 25 minutes. Or if the steak's more than that, then we'd need more than that initial 25 minutes. And then there's also another 25 minutes at the end. A taxi is a brilliant example, our second one here, of a real life formula. A taxi will always cost to actually get in the car. If you got in one door and out of the other, as I like to tell my groups, it would still cost you, because the taxi has to charge you for actually driving and using the petrol to arrive at your pickup point. After that, you then get charged for the journey itself, because of the petrol that costs, and then that will vary depending on how far you go. So we can see here, this taxi here has a minimum cost of £2.40. So that means even if you call the car to your house and decided you didn't need it anymore, it's going to cost you £2.40. You can then go actually in this taxi up to 256.6 metres, and then it starts to charge you 20 pence every 127.3 metres up until you get to a certain amount, and then it actually starts to go up even more than that afterwards. So that's quite a more complicated taxi journey one, but a real life example of how one of these variables might be used. The distance travelled might change depending on where you're going to go. And another one then, we've got something from HSS Hire, which is we might have noticed, is where we got our heaters from last Christmas as well. So tip up concrete mixers here, and you can hire them. So the first day here is £10, but any extra day after that's only £5. So if I hired it for a day, it'd cost £10. But if I hired it for 2 days, it wouldn't cost 20. It would cost my first day of 10 and my extra day of 5. So it cost £15. You can then see there's some other offers there, or other variations on this. So if you were hiring it over a weekend, then that's £12.50. So that's actually slightly more expensive than 2 extra days. And then if you're hiring it for a full week, then it's got a deal there of £20 for it. And then you could use this information to work out how much it would cost depending on how long someone needed to hire the concrete mixer for. So these are all examples of real life worded formulae. So you're going to have a look at actually using some of these in practice now. So here's a rule to work out the time it takes to cook a piece of meat. We've got time in minutes equals 36 times the weight in kilograms, then plus another 30. So we've got two unknowns here. We don't know the time in minutes, and we don't know the weight in kilograms just yet. So hopefully as part of our question, we're going to be told what the weight is. And here, straight underneath the question, a piece of meat has a weight of 4 kilograms. Brilliant. So it says use the rule to work out the time in minutes it takes to cook this piece of meat. So whenever you're using a formula, think about what our variables are. Our variables here could be the unknown, so time in minutes or the weight. Have a look at which ones we have, and you should only ever be left with one left over to work out. So here we're being asked to work out time in minutes, and that means we should have every other number in the formula. Have we got our first number? Yeah, 36 is given to us. Have we got our weight in kilograms? Yes, that's 4. And have we got another number at the end? Yes, that's 30. So the only number we're actually missing for this sum is the time in minutes, which is what we've obviously been asked to work out here. So now we go and rewrite our formula, but pop in the numbers that we need. So time in minutes equals 36 times 4 plus 30, just replacing our weight in kilograms with the 4 that we were told it was. This just becomes a BIDMAS sum now. So 36 times 4 plus 30. Well, let's have a look. There's no brackets, there's no indices, there's no division either. There is a multiplication, so that must come first. Then there is addition, and there's no subtraction. So we need to do our multiplication first, and then our subtraction. So 36 times by 4, and then add 30. So 36 times 4 first is 144. Then add the 30 to it, and we get 174. Just remember that the units that we're using in our question here, it did say time in minutes. So in our answer, it must be time in minutes again. So we have 174 minutes as our answer. And it's as straightforward as that. So this can look very complicated to begin with, but as soon as you start replacing or substituting some of the key terms in these formulae with the numbers that you're given, then it will actually transpire that you're just doing a bit of BIDMAS, just jazzed up a little bit. So here's a more complicated version of this question, and this is now working in reverse. So we've got the same formula here to work out the time to cook a piece of meat. Time in minutes equals 36 times the weight in kilograms plus 30. However, in this question, we're now told that it takes 192 minutes to cook a different piece of meat, and we now need to work out the weight. So having a look, we can start off again by writing our formula out, but replacing the numbers. In this case, we've given the time in minutes, but we're still missing our weight in kilograms. So we have a formula that looks like this. 192 equals 36 times by the weight in kilograms plus 30. And in this case, we actually need to work in reverse for BIDMAS, because we need to try and get the weight in kilograms on its own. Now, if you think about BIDMAS, we did our multiplication first, and then lastly did our addition. So when we're trying to reverse this and get the weight on its own, we now need to do the opposite of those. So the opposite of adding 30, as you can see on the slide here, is taking away 30. I'm going to take away 30 from both sides of this formula. So it's going to leave us with 162 is 36 times by the weight in kilograms. Now remember, multiplication can be expressed in either way. So if you're doing 36 times weight or weight times 36, they're both going to give you the same answer. So here, our weight is now being times by 36, so we need to reverse that. So the opposite of timesing our weight by 36 is dividing our weight by 36. And of course, when we're dealing with equations, we do the same to both sides of our equation. So we also need the 162 divided by 36. And that will give us 4.5 is the weight in kilograms, so 4.5 kg as our answer. So we can now have a look at other rules as well and see if we can have a look at these, and you might want to work ahead. So this rule is used to work out the time in minutes it takes to make microchips. So the time is the number of microchips divided by 20 plus 4. So work out the time it takes to make 100 microchips. So if you'd like to work ahead, you could pause the video. If not, I'm going to be going through the answers to this now. So work out the time it takes to make 100 microchips. So we have our number of microchips given to us. So we can rewrite our formula now, and we can have our answer worked out from there. So we're going to have time equals 100 divided by 20 plus 4. Let's think of bid mass again. Have we got brackets? No. Indices? No. Division? Yes. We've got a division here. Then no multiplication. We have got addition that we can do later on, and then we've got subtraction. So let's do our division first. 100 divided by 20 is 5. So our sum becomes 5 plus 4, which is obviously going to give us 9. Now always watch out for the units here. It's 9 minutes, because remember the rule we were told at the start is actually working out the time in minutes. And there we go, a formula used. Let's have a look at working this one in reverse then. It says this rule can be used to work out the time in minutes it takes to make microchips, and time is the number of microchips divided by 20 and plus 4. So part B is now asking us to work out the greatest number of microchips that can be made in 60 minutes. So if we've got 60 minutes, we've got our time, but we're missing our number of microchips. So let's rewrite the formula with the numbers that we've been given. So 60 equals the number of microchips divided by 20 and plus 4. And again, we now need to work in reverse. So think about what happened in bid mass. Bid mass, we did our division first, and then we did our addition. If we're working in reverse, we need to get rid of that last part, get rid of the addition first. So the opposite of adding 4 is taking 4, and we're going to do that to both sides of our equation. So take away 4 from both sides, and we're left with 56 is the number of microchips divided by 20. Now the answer we're after then, the number of microchips, is currently being divided by 20. So this is the bit that we now need to reverse. And the opposite of dividing by 20 is timesing by 20. So we do that to both sides of our equation, and we get our final answer. So 1120 is the number of microchips. Now, if you were looking at a more problem-solving question, you might have ended up with some decimal answers there, and obviously we need to round appropriately for it. If we had made 1120.8 microchips, well, we haven't actually made that 0.8, and that isn't a whole microchip yet, so we'd actually, in this case, round down if you were doing a practical question. The 0.8 would normally tell us to round up, but if you're being asked how many have been made or can be made, it's not a 1121. We can't make that last one, so you'd have to round down to 1120. So using the formula is fairly straightforward. We just replace the words with the numbers that will be given in the question, but it can get a little bit more complicated if you're being asked to reverse one of these questions. I would definitely write out the full formula first and show those steps that you're taking to reverse, because you actually need to go the opposite way to bid mass in order to get your answers to those reversing questions. So I'd like you to decide how confident you feel with this topic. You can choose red, amber or green. Remember, red is going to be our activity that has quite a bit of frameworking for it. Amber is going to be some questions that have a little bit of a hint. And then green is for confident people who want no help with their questions and just to dive straight in. And then complete the corresponding activity in your books or on paper or on the document itself. And then we can show the answers when you are ready. So pause the video until you're ready for those. So answers coming in. I do hope that you've shown you working out with these questions, and the answers will be as follows. So if you'd like to pause until you've got those marked. Again, it's really essential to be showing you working out with these. If people were just writing the answers to these, then you would not score the full marks in a test or an exam, and I would not be awarding those myself if I was marking the questions. So show your working out to show how you've got to those answers. Once you're ready to continue, then we've got now a My Maths activity set for you that you can continue with if you have time to do so in this lesson. There's also an extension sheet that I've attached as well, so those people that would like an extra challenge, if you've got the appropriate time, they can have a go at the extension as well. So thanks again for engaging with these online lessons. And if you haven't yet sent me that message on Show My Homework to show that you've accessed the lesson, then please do so. I've been really enjoying the people that have been sending in their work as well, pictures of it for me to have a look at, even if it's self-marked. It's been great to see the work that people have been doing. And as always, if you do need any help with this, please get in touch with me at red@theroyal.school. Thank you very much. I'll speak to you next week.